I'm Valaida Fullwood, and today I'm the face of America. Well, I think for starters, I care for other people because I grew up that way. I come from a caring family, a close-knit family in the South, and a community of people who were givers and doers. And so just growing up in that environment with that culture and that spirit influenced who I am today and led me on the path to work and write about philanthropy. I'm a resident of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a writer, a public speaker, and an idea whisperer. I focus on Black philanthropy because working as a consultant and writer in philanthropy, I noted that historically and conventionally, many of the stories that were told and lifted up excluded the stories from Black philanthropists and Black givers. That oftentimes the stories were centered on wealth and on whiteness and often on males specifically. And as a Black woman, didn't feel my voice or my stories and the stories that I knew and my experiences with philanthropy were represented. And that set me out on a path to help lift up and tell those stories and celebrate giving in the Black community. My giving circle, which is a new generation of African American philanthropists, we came together, pooled our dollars, and began making grants to make a difference in Charlotte. And during that process, I was struck by the stories, not only stories I knew and had in my family and in my life, but of other stories. So I had the idea to write a book that would be a collection of those stories, first-person narratives about why and how people are inspired to give. And I collaborated with a photographer, Charles Thomas, and he captured imagery that reinforced the idea that philanthropy is deeper than your pockets. And that book became Giving Back, a tribute to generations of African American philanthropists. The book itself gives back. In fact, sales from the book go to my giving circle and helps advance our civic engagement in philanthropy. And after a few years with the book, Charles and I thought it would be a great idea to reimagine Giving Back the book as an exhibit where people could come and engage, and the exhibit could serve as a vehicle for conversation and civic engagement and discussion. So we were fortunate to partner with Johnson C. Smith University, a historically Black university in Charlotte, and get major funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to create the Soul of Philanthropy. And the exhibit has been touring for the last 3 or 4 years to college campuses across the country, to cultural institutions and museums. And it's been really an exciting iteration of my work and writing around Black philanthropy. I think philanthropy, particularly conscious philanthropy, being aware of why and how you give, and not just giving because somebody asked, but having an interest or passion or something you'd like to see change in the world, and giving your time, talent, and treasure to help create change. I think it's more important now than ever, not just because of the political climate, but also because of socioeconomic dynamics and just the complexities and issues we face in the world, that I think all of our voices are needed, and all of us need to have skin in the game in terms of creating the communities we need and want, and the future that we can be excited and proud about. Well, I had the fortune in creating Giving Back the book to interview over 200 Black donors about why and how they give. So I heard lots of inspiring stories, and choosing one is like choosing my favorite child, so that's sort of tough. But there is one woman's story in particular that stuck with me, and that was the story of Miss Elizabeth. And I spoke to her. She had passed at the time that I was researching, but I spoke to her niece, and she shared her aunt's story. And Miss Elizabeth had come from a humble background, and in her 20s she was a hairdresser, and her husband died, and she found herself young, a widow, and nervous about her future. So she saw an ad for a job at a university. So she thought, well, this is an opportunity to increase my opportunities. So she went and applied, and the folks there recognized right off she didn't have the qualifications and let her know that she didn't qualify for the job, but saw her spunk and potential and said, hey, instead of applying for a job, why don't you apply for school? We'll help you get admittance, and you can go to college. So she did. She became a teacher, and at key junctures in her life, people were there to support her and give her generous support that really changed the whole trajectory of her life. And she became a public school teacher and was active in her community and gave back, and loved to travel. But when she died in her 80s, a woman from modest means who'd been a public school teacher was able to leave $250,000 to the local urban league, several universities, the United Way in our community. And I was just struck by her story of generosity. And she had a motto about paying it back. You know, do something good for somebody else. Whenever somebody would do something for her at those key junctures, and she would ask, well, what can I do for you? How can I repay you? Thank you so much. They were like, help out the next person. And so she applied that throughout her life and even in her death. And her story shows that everybody has the potential to be a philanthropist, even people from modest means. You don't have to be a millionaire, and with enough thinking and planning and intentionality, you can have a really strong impact on your community.